Hi, boys and girls. The other day, I had you guys look at my mystery box picture and I gave you some clues, and you had to draw a conclusion on what you thought was in the box. I had some great guesses, and a lot of you actually guessed what was in the box. So, just to review, to draw conclusions means when that authors don't always explain everything that happens in a story. They let us use what we have read and what we know from real life to figure some things out for ourselves. This is called drawing conclusions. So it's using what we already know and using clues from the author to come up with our own ideas about what's happening. So I wanted to share a quick book with you. And this story is one of my favorites. It's called Miss Nelson is Missing. And we're going to be stopping and drawing some conclusions here. Miss Nelson is missing. The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling. Paper planes whizzed through the air. They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. Now settle down, said Miss Nelson in a sweet voice. But this class would not settle down. So right there, the author is giving us details to show us how bad the kids are and how much they're misbehaving. So we can actually picture it, right? The spitballs and the paper airplanes. And then they mention that Miss Nelson asked them to settle down in a sweet voice. So that, based on that detail, I'm wondering if Miss Nelson is too gentle to get the class to listen. Maybe her request to settle down, please, in that nice sweet voice won't work. So let's see. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. They were even rude during story hour. So right there is another clue that the author's giving me. He's giving me a clue with the word even. It suggests that story time is their favorite part of the day. But even during that, the kids wouldn't listen. Okay? And they always refuse to do their lessons. Something will have to be done, said Miss Nelson. So right there, I'm wondering why these kids were misbehaving. And I'm going to be listening or looking for a reason why. Maybe the author will tell us why they keep misbehaving. And here, Miss Nelson saying something will have to be done. So I bet here she's cooking up a plan. I know when a character says something, the author wants me to pay attention. So I'm getting clues that Miss Nelson's planning something. Let's read more and find out. The next morning, Miss Nelson did not come to school. Maybe she took a day off because she's sick of dealing with all the disruptive and the misbehaving. Maybe she stayed home. I don't know. Let's find out. Wow, yelled the kids. Now we can really act up. They began to make more spitballs and paper planes. Today, let's just be terrible, they said. Not so fast, hissed an unpleasant voice. Uh-oh. A woman in an ugly black dress stood before them. A woman in an ugly black dress. So the ugly dress and the fact that she hissed in her unpleasant voice makes me think that this is somebody mean and strict who's not going to put up with the kids and they're misbehaving. Maybe it's the principal, or maybe it's a substitute teacher. I don't know. Let's find out. I am your new teacher, Miss Viola Swamp. And she rapped the desk with her ruler. Where's Miss Nelson? Asked the kids. Never mind that, snapped Miss Swamp. Open those arithmetic books. Miss Nelson's kids did as they were told. Wow. She rapped the desk and hissed, and that behavior is a lot different than the way that Miss Nelson acted with her class. So her sweet approach wasn't working, and now it seems that this other woman is here, and her approach is very different, and it seems that the kids are scared of her. Oh, goodness. They could see that Miss Swamp was a real witch. She means business. Right away, she put them to work, and she loaded them down with homework. We'll have no story hour today, said Miss Swamp. Oh my goodness, no story hour. So earlier I guessed that the students really liked story time, And here I'm getting proof that my thinking was right. Maybe Miss Swamp knows how much they loved story hour and she takes it away as a punishment. So we'll have no story hour today, said Miss Swamp. Keep your mouth shut, said Miss Swamp. Sit perfectly still, said Miss Swamp. And if you misbehave, said Miss Swamp, you'll be sorry. Uh-oh. I think I'm afraid of her. Days went by, and there was no sign of Miss Nelson. The kids missed Miss Nelson. So here I'm getting the sense that the kids are starting to realize how good they had it with Miss Nelson, now that they have another teacher in the place. Maybe we should try to find her, they said. Some of them went to the police. Detective McSmog was assigned to the case. He listened to their story. He scratched his chin. He said. I think Miss Nelson is missing. Detective Smog would not be much help. Other kids went to Miss Nelson's house. The shades were tightly drawn and no one answered the door. So here I'm getting clues that Miss Nelson's hiding and doesn't want to be found. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Miss Viola Swamp coming up the street. If she sees us, she'll give us more homework. They got away just in time. Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nelson. Maybe she was gobbled up by a shark, said one of the kids. But that didn't seem likely. Maybe Miss Nelson went to Mars, said another kid. But that didn't seem likely either. I know, exclaimed one know-it-all. Maybe Miss Nelson's car was carried off by a swarm of angry butterflies. But that was the least likely of all. So here the author is giving me more hints to make me think about how much the kids miss Miss Nelson. They're coming up with all sorts of possibilities for where she could be. That makes me think that they're curious about where she went, or they're concerned about her. The kids in room 207 became very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nelson was never coming back, and they would be stuck with Miss Viola Swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. Here comes the witch, they whispered. Hello, children, someone said in a sweet voice. It was Miss Nelson. So here I'm going to draw the conclusion that the kids must be very excited about Miss Nelson's return. Just when they're thinking that they're stuck with Miss Viola Swamp forever, they hear Miss Nelson's sweet voice. The author also uses an exclamation point to show that something exciting or important is happening. Did you miss me? She asked. We certainly did, cried all the kids. Where were you? That's my little secret, said Miss Nelson. How about a story hour? Oh, yes, cried the kids. Miss Nelson noticed that during story hour, no one was rude or silly. It could be that their kids are on their best behavior now because they're so excited that Miss Nelson's returned, and perhaps they realize that their behavior for her before was pretty bad. What brought about this lovely change? She asked. That's our little secret, said the kids. Miss Nelson's wondering, what's going on with you guys? What brought about this? Back home, Miss Nelson took off her coat and hung it up in the closet, right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang a little song. I'll never tell, she said to herself with a smile. So throughout the end of the story here, the author is giving me some very, very important clues. So I'm going to add all those clues up to draw a conclusion about the identity of Miss Viola Swamp. I know that Miss Nelson disappeared at the same time that Miss Swamp appeared. I know that the kids saw Miss Swamp right by Miss Nelson's house. And now I know that Miss Nelson has a black dress in her closet and a secret she won't tell. All of these clues are making me think that Miss Nelson and Miss Swamp might be the same person. I'm going to draw the conclusion that Miss Nelson dressed up in disguise to teach her kids a lesson. P.S. Detective McSmog is working on a new case. He is now looking for Miss Viola Swamp. So earlier, I drew the conclusion that Detective McSmog wasn't that bright, and I've got even more evidence of that here. I was able to to draw the conclusion that Miss Nelson and Miss Swamp are the same person, but Detective McSmog hasn't figured that out. This makes me think he won't be very successful when he's looking for Miss Swamp. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Miss Nelson was actually Miss Viola Swamp too? The author certainly gives us clues for us to be able to draw that conclusion. So what I did during that book is, as I was reading, I was taking in all the clues. I was being a detective. And I was using things that I already knew. And I was using the clues and kind of making my own guesses. So that's what we do as good readers all the time. We may not know that we're doing it, but we're always trying to, oh yeah, I think it's this, right? Finding clues and being detectives is fun. So this was a great example of how we can use the author's clues to draw some conclusions.